This next topic over the afternoon, I'm going to do this week things to do with form drawing, and then after that what form drawing progresses into in its geometry. I imagine a number of you have been involved in doing form drawing before. Is there anyone who's not done any kind of form drawing? One, two, so there's some. It's interesting with this topic, form drawing, there was two subjects that Rudolf Stein introduced into education. That was form drawing and eurythmy, a movement. So it's interesting. So part of what I want you to be doing when we do this is trying to observe yourself in what it's like making these forms. What we'll do, at least, I don't know, maybe you can actually do this in your book. So I've sort of got here some larger paper which you can use for form drawing. What I'm suggesting for you as adults is that we use pencils. These are mostly 6B pencils, which I think is about as soft as, 8B is the softest. Pencils here, which means that you can, when you've done something, you can erase mistakes. Some people do form drawing with wax crayons. That's fine, they're free. I find with wax crayons they stick to the paper a bit, so it makes it just hard to do free-flowing forms. And once you've made a mark, it's there forever. It's like destiny calls but once. These are all sort of issues you can consider in this situation. Anyway, I'm going to hand these out. If you want to use crayons and know what that's like, there's a whole lot over here, and you can come and help yourself. So, what is form drawing? It's line drawing. And so it's quite different from other kind of drawing, which might be a kind of crayon painting or whatever, where you're trying to create a landscape or picture or some other depiction. Here you're going to sort of be involved in forms, and you see there's an element that when you do something, there's an idea within you that what you want to create, and then you have an action and you have a look and see what you've created. So you can have an idea of a straight line and draw a straight line. Then you have a look and see, well, what have I done? And sometimes it's not very straight. So there's always a kind of tension between what you're wanted to do as an intention and what you actually achieve. You'll experience that. Some people might call that frustration, but it's also an opportunity to improve. So sometimes, like when we're doing work, I'll say, I want you to find the center of the page, and you get all these people to whip out their rulers and work it out. I say, first, try and estimate where it is. Use your artistic judgment. And then you will measure it and see, well, how was I? Did I get it near the center? There's an opportunity to develop a skill. And one of the things that we try to work with in Waldorf schools is developing skills as much as we develop knowledge, or I would even put more than we develop knowledge. So we could give you a lesson about straight lines, but if you do straight lines, then you're developing some skill. In other words, your spirit is being able to learn to control this body that you've got. And you might say, people today who do all sorts of strange things, whether it's from bullying onwards, through low self-esteem, in some ways you get self-esteem by what you can do rather than what you know. So this is something that leads towards that. Again, I'll give my caveat. You don't have to believe anything I say, but you can kind of work it out for yourself. So you can test out the ideas, what I say. So Rudolf Steiner suggested this form drawing happens quite early on in the schooling. And he says, children, they're usually after, they're 6 or in their 7th year. And one of the things he will draw their attention is not that they don't know they've got hands, but he says, look, children, you've got hands. And with your hands, you can do things. And you see, it's an element, and then just say, now we take off being a child and think, so what's he saying? We've got hands. Think of the animals. They've got feet. And we've got hands. A monkey, yes, and the great apes and so on, yes, they've got hands, but they're moving towards what we've got. So that you begin to think, what actually distinguishes us as human beings from other creatures? And one of them is that it's got hands. Do you know what the Latin name for hand is? Anyone? Manus. Man, us. This we get the name man from this. Why we call ourselves mankind. We've got hands. But the other aspect, we came man and men, the other aspect is mental. That our mental faculties and our hands are one of the things that distinguish us from the animal kingdom. But we'll be more about the kingdoms tomorrow. So that you can do things. And one of the things he suggests is that you actually can have a time when you're going to draw a straight line. So the teacher can draw a straight line and then invite every child to come up and also draw a straight line. But how does the teacher draw a straight line? I mean, a teacher can go up and sort of... Or a teacher can perhaps do it slightly differently. And I think we'll go through and invite each of you to come up and draw on that part of the board a straight line. And of course, each of you and the teacher is observing every child come up and see what do they do. Straight away, you see, you've got a left-hander. Here's a 6-year-old rebel. 2 things. It was upwards and it wasn't vertical. Thank you. So what do you observe? What did you experience? Yes, we've got 2 left-handers. What did the teacher do? The teacher gives an example, which the children follow. 2 people didn't follow it. That's a sort of interesting picture. But now, just some other little aspects. I want you to sort of mine this a little bit. Mine, I mean to dig and just say some things you can experience. I want you to draw your attention to it. Yes.
My eyes and my hands work together.
Yeah. Eyes and hands. Coordination is called. Yes, there's coordination. Yes.
The intention with which, or intensity with which somebody began their line can sometimes remain throughout and sometimes not be as strong at the end.
Yeah. Already the tension fading. Yes, thanks. Thank you, yes.
Whether or not the head moved as they were drawing it, it was just with the eyes.
Whether it was just the eyes, yes. May note that. Mm.
It urges us to stand up very tall when we do it.
Yeah. That's like the 2 examples I gave. One was a casual, this doesn't matter much, or standing there with a certain, you can see the kind of focus the teacher tries to bring and to give this sort of picture of the children, that they also, to be able to do this, they need to focus. It's not just a flick away, give away thing. Yeah. Anything else? Yes, Raven.
All the chalk related to the chalkboard.
Yes, just say a little bit more about what you mean.
Whether you had a piece of chalk that had a point or it had
A flat end.
a flat end and how it made the line.
Thank you. And the people who did a different size of lines, just say something about that, those who did it.
Well, I either missed the instruction. I didn't think you intended for us to necessarily draw an up and down line.
Yeah. The thing is, of course, you are adults, and children who are 6 have a different relationship to their teacher. They have come to school really wanting to learn from their teacher. In kindergarten, children play, they play by themselves, and towards the end of their kindergarten time, they start to stop playing and come and stand beside their kindergarten teacher and have conversations. It's like saying, I'm ready now to learn from an adult. And you know, there's a kind of, you can begin to see, those are one of the kind of transitions. So from play, now, and so that's one of the things you see, these children are now ready to go into a class 1. And so they will have a different thing. You see, sometimes parents can experience children in class 1 or 2, those early classes. The teacher has said something in class, and the child goes home and announces to the parents this truth. And the parents think, oh God, I mean, how did, this is not quite right. But, you know, the child announces this if it was being decreed from heaven. And they sort of take in all seriousness what the teacher says to them. It doesn't last past the 9-year-old crisis so much, but you know, it's there is a time that's sort of so you have quite an interesting responsibility, but they come knowing they want to learn from you, a teacher in those first years, how to do things. It's through the will that they know they're going to learn from their teacher. Later on, it's not the will. It's the feeling and the thinking, but in the early stages it's the will. And what was it like to draw that line that you did?
It felt very freeing.
Yeah.
To go upward, to the upward motion.
Yeah. And for those who drew the one that was down, what's that experience?
Grounding. Grounding.
Grounding. It's coming in. What are young children doing? They're incarnating. If I got them to do this, you know, the saying would, so I give an example of doing a downward line. And just it's sort of its part there, and so on. So you tried something different too. What was your experience and your feeling with it?
It's kind of the same as her. I didn't realize there was a request to do it vertically, but I knew I could do it better horizontally than vertically.
Yeah. It's interesting because I didn't make a request to do that. I mean, I just said, come and draw a line. And so you're quite right. But for a child would not actually come up with that thinking at that stage. Later on, yes, but not in the beginning. And so, in a certain sense, you can say, look, there's our class. We've all drawn ourselves there. You know, in a certain sense of the stick figures, here we are. But there's other interesting things in there too. Now, the first people, they have lots of space to draw. What's it like to be last? You think, where am I going to draw? You know, how do I fit in? So this thing, did you experience that or not? I mean, just a little bit as you came, yes.
Well, also that I don't know, I feel like I could almost draw a straighter line without the constriction. You know, like I had to...
You had a little narrow...
And I could see how imprecise I was from the lines on either side.
Yeah. Yes, you could sort of feel other kind of looking on the side, yes. So we start with, anyway, a straight line as part of those first pictures. But straight lines are not all. What's the other main thing in forms? A straight line and a curve. Okay, so Here we've done it on the board. Now sometimes too, before we draw, we can actually just do something in the air. It saves paper. So you can or which way do you draw a circle? Which way comes naturally? This way or this way? Is it your right hand moving up in the center and then coming down? Or is it, yeah. I think each person is different. It's probably, just let's have a look. You just work out whether you did it clockwise or anti-clockwise. How many people did it anti-clockwise? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the other ones, they clockwise. So it's about 50-50 about which those are. It would be interesting to think, to note whether that, is there any significance in that, in which way to draw it. So, on your page, I'll take away the class portrait. Oh yes, and of course you can always clean the board according to the temperaments. Yeah, I'm finished. Whatever. Different ways. So let's now draw a circle. I'm not going to get you to come up to the blackboard all the time. So where do you start? You start at the top and go round. Oh, it's quite different, isn't it? And so keep going round and round. So it's not just once. Because you see, there's a kind of dynamic to your drawing. If you go too slow or too fast, what does it do? Try drawing a circle very slowly, and then very fast, and then take the middle way at a middle speed. Experience the difference. I want you to notice how it is for you. I don't want me to be telling you what it is for you. Now do the other direction, the one that you didn't choose first. Does it feel different? Just another thing I should say is, don't draw these things too small. If they're too small, they end up being finger movements. You want to make this as big enough to be arm movements, so that it's so that you really. And some of you may find it easier even to stand, and so that you can use your whole hand to doing something on the desk. Try that as a different experience. You've been sitting, try standing and see what that's like. Go both ways, your favorite way and the other way. If you start at the top, start from the bottom. See what that's like. Do you meet the first time round? You actually end up hitting the tail of the circle where you started. And then, just for an experience for you as adults, use the other hand. That probably gives you an experience of what it's like for a child who hasn't done a lot of this. And so they're not don't feel very competent with their hands, whereas you've had a few years plus in which to develop skills with your hands. And then you can try, as it were, go on and try some other things so that you can try the other directions. Straight line, in from the side. So try these different directions. Again, trying to note How does it feel like when I do a down line and do an up line? Up to one side, up to the other side. If you're right-handed, going up to the right, or going up to the left, it's quite different. You can make a series of half circles. You can make designs, you don't have to necessarily follow mine. But making curves, different orientation. Then you can take the straight lines and complete a form like a square, so that you have to go back to the beginning. Or even making a cross where there has to try and meet in the middle. It's not so easy. And of course you can add to it by you begin to see, sometimes you begin to see a pattern, and that belongs to your mind, and you think, how can I actually achieve that on the page? See, that last one I did, there's a hidden element there. Can anyone say what it is? There's a dot. Where the beginnings and ends of the lines, what do they form? There's a sort of, this like a diamond shape, yes. And so part of when I do it, I think, can I start on this invisible diamond and come back to it? So try that one and try it several times till you get it so that you can feel, you see the invisible part I'll put in yellow, or simply you can do the square form like this. And with this one, I've got to think, have I done enough or should I do another one to make it square? You're having to use artistic judgment in all of these things. So this is part of what you're working with children. They have to sort of have an idea, translating between what they see and what they want to do. And this often is quite a bit of a training to get your hands to do what your head is envisaging. I mean, we all know that from all the different crafts or arts and things that we do. This process of being able to get our body, in other words, our body's skills, to follow our intentions. Yes, I like that little phrase, where the pencil touches the paper. You know, something hits the paper, where the pencil hits the paper. That's a nice, where it touches the paper. It's a real point of focus, isn't it? And for children, there is sort of they have an opportunity to focus. Now, of course, we're doing this we're having one session, we're having quite a long session, probably more than what you'd want to do with children in this kind of focus. But I'm just wanting to go through some different possibilities of shapes and things in this simple level. So I'm not suggesting you have great long form drawing lessons with children, but you have to assess with your class whether they can do 1 or 2 or 3 drawings, but not a whole host like this, I would suggest. But you're in charge in your classroom. You have to be responsible for observing the classroom and what is possible possible for them without some of them falling over the rails or whatever. So there's some other different forms that, variations on the curve and the straight line that you can do. I'll do a few more. This is much harder. You've got to be watching the invisible form that's at the beginning and the end of each of the lines. And that's easy because it's for a right-handed person, it's much easier to do that stroke than to do the other one, coming down from the left. You should really notice on the blackboard the difference between downstrokes and pushing upwards against the resistance of the blackboard. So one of the things you notice with a blackboard and chalk is the resistance that you get compared with whiteboards and the whiteboard markers, that they have very little resistance on them. So it's an interesting process of working with the resistance that chalk provides and the different dynamic there is with whiteboard markers.
So you allow the children to erase?
That's your choice. What's the problem with erasing work? Is it just, is there a problem with erasing work? What's likely to happen? Yeah, this can be a discussion among you. If you were a child, how would you like it to be told you can't erase your work? Is it good for them or is it not good for them? If I told you you couldn't erase that, how would you feel?
It could be the way that you tell them, though, too. If you told a little story about, now let's see, you're going on a journey, and you don't want to forget where you started.
Yes, you can do something like that.
Where you started, and then you can see how you end up.
Yeah. So you can leave it as a trail, and you say, try your best that you wouldn't have to make any changes. But there are some, I think, that part of their constitution needs to be able to do it again. Mm-hmm. And so you need to have that flexibility to imprison a melancholic with his or her mistakes mightn't be such a good thing, whereas a sanguine, it might be quite good for them to... I don't know. This is a thing you can try and observe and see and trying to think and actually call in what is the right intuition, what do I need to say on this occasion, what do I need to develop. And a part of it is, of course, to develop a certain seriousness for the work so that you'll try hard that it won't need erasing. But if it does, then's the question. And then you have to say, well, what care are you going to take if I allow you to raise it? Are you going to take real care this time so you don't need to? Do you need to say that to the children? Or will they be striving anyway? Yeah. I think it's an open question. And you have to intuit the right answer at the time for that child, the occasion, the mood of the time, and what effect it might have on others. Right, a few more. Yes, keep your forms fairly big, so it's not too much in the fingers, but it has something more of the larger movement. Again, observe your thing about whether the speed of your drawing, are you too slow or too fast? I know they really latch onto it, and when I say in China, I say the middle way, neither too fast nor too slow. You know, all they think, this is special. Now invent a few forms of your own. When you're a teacher, you're going to have to do that. That sort of involved a mixing of straight line and curve. You can see at the moment the ones I'm giving you are kind of self-contained little motifs. Later on we move into more ribbon or longer dynamic drawings, but just keep them, as it were, the beginning to little forms together like this. If anyone has a form they'd like to share, do feel free to come and put it on the board. Thank you. I could see that growing in your mind as you did it.
Just a little bit different on my paper.
Yes. Thank you. Transition from a right-hand curve to a left-hand curve. In geometry they call it a flex. You go from one side to the other way. Because it has to go through an exact straight part. Somewhere in the middle it has to stop being curved and be straight before it goes and curves the other way. It's like a little ear listening, isn't it? I think at the moment we've probably done enough form drawing, 3/4 of an hour solid. And what I'd like to do is actually go into the next stage of the day, which is a kind of review, and I just say what it'll involve, is we'll actually go through to the other room so we form a circle. And there's two elements that I wanted to include. One is that we look backwards over the day. It's not as though we were starting at the beginning and just traipsing through what we've done, but it's trying to start in the other thing, what we've just done, and more recently what before that, what was before that, until you get backwards to the beginning of the day. When we came here, we came to the room at 8:30, sort of thing. Some of you in your own minds can go all the way back till you got up, but that's a different another exercise. So we'll be sharing that, and then I'll be asking you, so what was it that caught your attention today? You've heard various things, you heard lots of things. What was it that you might say, that's something that was new, an interesting idea for me. I'd like to take hold of that. And part of taking hold of an idea is actually to enunciate it, to say it. This caught my attention. This is something I was very interested when somebody or whatever said this or that. So those are the two elements of what we'll do to finish the day. Tomorrow, when we come back, we'll reconnect with the day after our morning circle with a night echo, which will be saying, can you recall back to yesterday to the things that we did? Maybe there are questions that overnight have come to you as a question out of these things. But somewhere, hopefully tonight, you'll be able to look back on the day and think about it and think, what would I bring as a connecting with the day before, either as a question or something special again that you'd like to link back to. All right?